Hey gorgeous, today I am going to give you an update on some of my containers that I put together back in early May. I want to show you how the plants are doing, how they're behaving. I have a lot of happy pollinators that are enjoying the blooms. A lot of those plants I started from seed, a lot of them I purchased as seedlings, so I just want to show you how they're doing early this July. If this is the first time that you're watching one of my videos, my garden is located in central Indiana. I am now a zone 6, I used to be a zone 5. And most of the plants that I am going to be showing you in the containers are annuals. So that means that they're just going to grow this season, and once the first frost comes, they're going to be dying, they're going to be done for the winter. But a lot of these plants that I have as annuals here growing are going to be reseeding for next year, and I'm going to make note of some of the things like reseeding or starting from seed or saving seeds. So if you have any questions at the end of this video, just let me know in the comments. First, let me show you this beautiful, beautiful container that is right in the middle of my kitchen garden, as I call it. I do have a combination of lantana, salvia, coleus, cosmos, and a lonely marigold that is kind of being devoured by lantana. Some of you mentioned that lantana does get huge for your gardens. For me, lantana gets about a medium size. They don't really get that huge. So when it comes to putting them in containers, I know that they will cover space nicely, but they're not going to be, but they don't get quite big. Because they're right next to my raised beds where I have irrigation, the containers that I have here are set up with their own irrigation, and they do get water here and there through that irrigation system, but most of the time, because I have my hose link right here next to them, I just give them a little bit of water. Compared to the raised beds, compared to the huge containers that I have here, these do dry quite quickly, so I just want to make sure they have plenty of water. I do pick the flowers from my coleus because I don't grow coleus for their blooms. But also the cosmos that I have growing here do produce a lot of flowers, and I am constantly here just removing, deadheading the spent blooms, because what I do want is the blooms. I really just do not care about saving seeds from these cosmos at this moment anyway. The next container here are these lovely, lovely, unbelievable brown eye Susan plants. I have 3 of these plants in this one single container. The container I got at home as well. I just feel like I get a lot of stuff from that store. These flowers here, they love that. They love it. They love where they are. I haven't had to do any deadheading just yet, mostly because I can't tell which ones are the spent blooms and which ones are, you know, the ones just coming up until they're completely brown. I love the combination here. I love how just a simple single variety of plants in one container can make this huge impact. I'm all for it. And if you're wondering, for all of the containers that I'm going to be showing you today, the ones that I will show you, the one behind me, and the rest that are going to come up here in a minute, they have got one single dose of fertilizer, liquid fertilizer. And when I first planted those, they all get some sort of fertilizer, slow release fertilizer. More than likely Plankton from Spoma, which I just mix with their potting mix. So that's all I'm using. But then later at some point, end of June, beginning of July, they start getting the fertilizer, liquid fertilizer. And like I mentioned before, these plants right here are annuals for me, meaning that once the winter comes, they're just all going to die and they're not going to come back. The plants that I have here are the ones in front of my garage. These guys get full sun, and every single container here is on irrigation. The irrigation that I have in all of my garden is not really set up automatically, meaning I don't have them going Mondays or Fridays or anything like that. Whenever I know that my garden needs water, I have my timers that I have hooked up to an app, and then I just start them as needed. So the irrigation for me is not something that I have automatically. It's just something that I use as needed. A lot of the plants here in these containers are plants that I started from seed, and also plants that I purchased at my local nursery. As you can tell, the beautiful, beautiful lantana is taking over these planters, and I am loving how it's behaving here. The idea whenever I put these containers here in front of the garage is that at some point you're not going to notice the containers, you're not going to notice the colors, And that's starting to happen because the plants are definitely getting full. They're definitely getting up there in blooms, and the foliage and the textures and the colors are all just how I imagine it. Everything is working so well together. Everything is looking like they were meant to be here, at least in my opinion. And while I do have some things here that are not quite growing as expected, I am very, very happy overall with the performance. Some of the things that I started from seed are these beautiful, beautiful cannas. They are loving it here, you guys. I have the cannas there in one single container, and they're just started to bloom. I also have that coleus that I mentioned to you that doesn't really handle the sun really that well. And for a minute, it looked like it was going to not make it here, especially with the temperatures that we had in the 90s here in full sun. But right now, the coleus looks like it's going to survive. It looks like it's coming along. And I just love how that color is just so rich, so deep, so beautiful. It goes really, really well with the lantana that I planted there. Another thing that I started from seed is this beautiful, beautiful set of petunias here. And this is the first time that I grow those type of petunias. They are the double blooms, which I love. I just love those blooms. However, one of the things that I noticed about this type of petunia is that it doesn't really hangs as most of the petunias that I have grown before do. This one kind of stands tall, and once it gets really heavy and it doesn't have any supports, it kind of just goes flat. And that's really what happened here. That's why you see one that is kind of stuck there on the side of that window box, and the rest are just kind of flattened and growing weirdly, because I didn't know that they were going to need some sort of support. And I do have this exact same variety growing in other containers that I'm going to show you here in a minute, and they're doing the exact same thing. Now, I do plan to grow this variety next year, and I will place it somewhere where I know that it's going to have support from the beginning, so that way it just thrives in there. But even then, right now, it looks like it could be like a beautiful, beautiful cascading type of plant there. Isn't she lovely? I have more coleus there on the back, and in front of it, I have a set of celosia. I have the celosia by itself in one container, and that celosia is a mix, and it gets really, really tall, you guys. It's loving it here for sure. I did have to add some support to it back there, and I have a string growing around it, because if not, this thing was going to be on the ground. One of the things to note about celosia, at least in my central Indiana garden, is that it reseeds like crazy. Last year, I planted this celosia in one of my raised beds with my tomatoes, and it was really the first year that I tried celosia. And this year, I am fighting all of the volunteers, the hundreds of volunteers that celosia gave me from last year. Now, it's going to be up to you to decide if that's something that you want to fight. Personally, I do not care. I just love the idea that this plant can be planted somewhere where it reseeds. And what I find out is that some of those celosias, some of those volunteers, are very easy to transplant if they show up in inconvenient places. I also have a couple of perennials there. Some cornflowers that I cannot remember the name because I simply did not save the tag. But these guys, at the end of the season, will be moved and transplanted into one of my flower beds because they will come back for next year. The other perennial is that lavender there, and I love that lavender for two reasons. One, because it's a perennial, it will come back next year. And two, because I started those plants last year. And this is their second year growing in those containers, and they are loving it here. I try not to water it as much because from what I have learned, lavender does not like a lot of water. So they do get water every other watering. A couple of weeks ago here in central Indiana, we went through really, really hot temperatures. We were about a week or so in the mid 90s, and I was really afraid for these containers here because they were exposed to the sun all day, and I kept on watering every day, sometimes twice a day, because these guys will be drying quickly. And I was really, really afraid for those coleus there. I thought for sure they were going to be goners being in full sun in those temperatures, but everything is looking amazing. Everything looked like they were meant to be there together. I love all the textures, all the colors, like I said. There is something about dark foliage and dark colors that just speaks to me. It's just magical in my opinion. The containers that I have around this bench are not quite blooming just yet, not completely anyway. And that's mainly because they get a lot of shade, more shade than I was really anticipating. But regardless, I love how they're performing. Let me show you. Early in May, I show you how I put these guys together, and last year I had some perennials growing here and they just sadly did not make it through the winter. So what I did this spring is that I took all of those roots, I removed any debris, anything that was not meant to be in that container. I kept my potting mix from last year because it was fine. It was very nice and fluffy potting mix. Most of the time, what I do regarding potting mix in containers from the year before is that if I didn't have any problems, if I didn't have any disease with those plants growing there in those containers, I will reuse that potting mix. The only thing that is lacking on that medium for that current year is the nutrients. And I can easily add that through fertilizer, through adding more potting mix. And it has been growing great for me doing this for many, many years now. So with these containers, I added more potting mix and I added plant tone from Espoma. I feel like that's my to-go-to plant tone from Espoma for perennials and annuals, mostly because I can find it locally and it's in a very good price. And sometimes if I get a good sale, then I'll just grab a few bags to have in my garage. All of the plants that I have growing here were started from seeds. The nasturtiums, the celosia, the purple millet grass, the cannas, all of them are doing amazing here. And like I mentioned, they have only gotten one single dose of liquid fertilizer, and they're loving it. They definitely get more shade than anticipated because they're growing underneath this tree, but they do not mind it. The purple millet that I am growing this year was started from seeds that I saved from last year. And last year I saved a bunch of these spikes. And one of the things that I do when I find that the seeds are hard to find and the seeds are kind of on the expensive side is I save my own. It's easy for me to do. Now this purple millet is listed as hybrid from the company that I purchased it. So last year I knew that if I was going to save seeds from these, that maybe the purple millet that I was going to grow from those seeds was not going to be completely true to the original. Now what does that mean? Well, maybe the spikes are smaller, maybe the foliage is a different color, maybe it's completely green, and that has been the case. The plants that I have this year are a combination of purple foliage and also green foliage. Now for me, it does not matter. I still love the foliage, I still love the color, whether it's purple or green, but mostly I love the spikes, and that also has been pretty cool. So now I know that the seeds that I save from these guys are going to give me beautiful, beautiful plants. So if you're growing purple millet and you want to save seeds, just know that you may not get the same color of the foliage from your original plants. But if you don't care about that, then that's the way to go. The containers that I have in my brick path area on the west side of the house are going completely insane, you guys. Every single plant that you see here in those containers were started from seed indoors about 4 to 6 weeks before my last frost date. If you want more information, just let me know in the comments. But everything here, dahlias, geraniums, petunias, celosia, coleus, they were all started from seed. And I am not saying that to sound proud. I am saying that to let you know that you can do this as well. If I can do this in my central Indiana garden, you can definitely do it in your own place. Here's where I have my other petunias. They are the same variety, but they are doing the same thing that they're doing in my window box. They're pretty much collapsing because they're supposed to be tall. They're not supposed to be hanging, I suppose. I didn't know that there were some petunias that could do this, but now knowing that this variety does this, I will definitely be prepared for it next year. My Mighty Mosaic coleus that I started from seed indoors a little bit earlier than most is definitely being crushed by all of the dahlias, all of the geraniums. Everything here is just playing along so well. The dahlias that I have there, I have 2 in each container, are also performing really nice. I did order a couple of trellises. They were small trellises from Amazon, and they were very plasticky, flimsy type of products. I think that I paid $10 for them. And a few weeks ago when I put them in those containers, I was almost hesitant to leave them there because I did not like them. They look just very, very cheap. But right now, you can't even see them. They're holding the celosias and the dahlias very well, and I'm happy that you can't really see them. If you're wondering about those heads of the alliums and why I haven't trimmed them down or gotten rid of them, is because I am trying to save seeds. So I'm just waiting for the heads to completely dry up so that I can save some seeds so that I can start some. I haven't done that yet before, so this will be my first time trying to grow alliums from seed, so wish me luck. The containers here, those huge containers, are on irrigation. And like I said before, the irrigation is run as needed. So I am definitely doing a lot of watering here because those containers are huge. They're really huge, and they definitely need lots of water for those plants. I have advised my kids and my husband to not walk through here with wagons or anything big because this is very limited space here. I love it, but I hate it at the same time. I mean, these celosias are gonna need some more support here in a minute. Isn't this amazing? It is hot and humid. I hope that you really enjoyed this video. I hope that I was able to give you information or maybe inspiration to do your own thing in containers for this season or next year. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. Feel free to like, share it with your friends, or simply watch another one of my videos like that one or this one. Thank you, and I will see you next time.